Hi, and welcome back to the Pilot Factored. So, in this third and final chapter on fatigue, we're going to look at how to properly reset, or a closer look basically at sleep, and how we can reset fatigue, we can counter it, and start our day as refreshed as possible. So, to understand sleep, first we got to talk about the chemistry of it. Everything that goes, the hormones that play into sleep, and how we can sort of manipulate them or use them to our advantage anyhow. How nutrition affects our sleep, and how habits that we can form will either be helpful or hurtful to our sleep habits and our overall fatigue or alert levels. So, without further ado, let's dive in. So going back to the previous chapter where we spoke about the circadian rhythm, we have to understand that is controlled by a hormone called melatonin. Now, you've probably heard about it. Chances are good that you've actually taken that as a supplement. But melatonin is a hormone that's created in the brain by the pineal gland. The pineal gland uh, works and starts working as the sun goes down and darkness creeps in. It becomes a cue for the pineal gland to start producing melatonin. For that reason, as we'll see later, we need darkness and to help produce that. Without it, we end up staying awake. So electronic devices, TVs, even lights, everything contributes against us falling asleep naturally. So anyhow, moving on to melatonin. Now, while melatonin doesn't induce sleep directly, a lot of people think that it puts you to sleep or that it's like a sleep drug. It controls instead the circadian rhythm. All it does is it's telling your body when to start winding down for sleep, and it kind of makes you sleepy, like feeling like you need to lay down and rest. You start yawning. That's what melatonin does. It's all. Um, Tryptophan is another hormone that's used by the body. It's used by the brain to produce serotonin, which is one of the brain's cornerstone neurotransmitters. Now, we won't go too deep into that, but what you have to understand is that melatonin, in turn, is synthesized from serotonin. So there's a chain reaction here going from tryptophan to serotonin to melatonin. All right, 5-HTP sleep process. Although we can summarize the chemistry of sleep in three steps as previously outlined for the sake of simplicity and clarity, the actual science of it includes a fourth element called 5-HTP. Sleep starts with food, funnily enough. The synthesis of melatonin starts with the ingestion of the amino acid tryptophan, which is commonly found in animal products, food like meat, seafood, poultry, eggs, and dairy. We can all remember a food coma after this delicious Thanksgiving turkey dinner, for example. Because the body isn't able to naturally produce tryptophan on its own, it must be acquired through the diet. For this reason, tryptophan is also known as an essential amino acid. Tryptophan gets converted then to 5-HTP, which then gets transformed into serotonin, or your brain's happiness neurotransmitter. Finally, melatonin is synthesized from serotonin when it's available, but it can also be created from a 5-HTP directly, meaning you can still go to sleep even if you're not happy. So tryptophan itself is an amino acid that the body needs in order to produce serotonin, as we've seen. Because the body is unable to produce tryptophan on its own, it must be acquired through the diet. For this reason, tryptophan is also known as essential. There are two main types of food recommended for your daily dose of tryptophan based on scientific evidence: carbohydrates and protein. These can be found in foods such as seeds, nuts, fish, chicken, turkey, eggs, leafy greens, dairy, and so on. Just to have a quick look at the different ones, nuts, for example, walnuts, are a good source of tryptophan and even contain a small dose of melatonin. Double whammy. Now, dairy, cheese, and milk contain high amounts of calcium, which helps the brain use the tryptophan, and they're found in dairy even more effectively. Um, you can obtain tryptophan and serotonin directly from carbohydrates, particularly 100% whole grain oats, brown rice, corn, and quinoa. Lean protein like fish, chicken, turkey, seeds, and some nuts will also provide protein, which contain the essential amino acid tryptophan. And finally, leafy greens, such vegetables such as kale and spinach, are loaded with calcium, which again, as we said, helps the brain process the tryptophan. So what this means is that a small snack, for example, before going to bed, like pretzels or a teaspoon of honey, will promote the insulin production and naturally raise the blood sugar. And that allows, in turn, tryptophan to enter the brain more easily because it's shuffled by that. Dairy products, dark leafy greens, and some nuts are naturally high in calcium, which, again, as we've said, will enhance your brain's ability to turn tryptophan into serotonin. Moving on from tryptophan to serotonin, um, we've talked about sleep debt. And the more sleep debt we accumulate, the harder it is to control our own mood. Sleep deprivation has been shown to desensitize serotonin pathways, impacting our brain's response to serotonin in general. So now, remember how I just said or I joked that we can still fall asleep even if we're upset? Well, it turns out that there's a caveat to that. So serotonin acts more like a volume knob. It's one of the major neurotransmitters in your brain, and its job is to regulate signal intensity between neurons. Basically, it acts like a volume knob on your radio, changing how effectively neurons communicate together, as well as changing a neuron's response to that particular signal. Because it's used in many different kinds of nerve cells around your body, serotonin levels can drastically alter our behavior. Higher levels of serotonin equate to happier mood, and lower levels can lead to depression. Because of that, diets high in the amino acid tryptophan can maintain healthy serotonin levels, but workplace challenges like constant travel and erratic sleep schedule can disrupt serotonin production. It's for that reason that carb-rich and therefore tryptophan-rich foods are often called comfort foods, allowing the body to boost serotonin production through the high influx of tryptophan. As in everything else, so moderation is key, as overindulging in carbohydrates and sugars decrease sensitivity to serotonin due to its overabundance. Finally, once synthesized in the body from the available tryptophan, serotonin in turn is used by the brain's pineal gland to produce melatonin. So melatonin works sort of as a clock. There's a neural pathway between the retina and the hypothalamus where our body clock central processor is. It is called the SCN in short. When the eyes detect light, the pathway is stimulated and the SCN engages wake functions, raises body temperature, etc., as we've seen on the circadian rhythm clock. However, when the sun sets and the darkness increase, the SCN turns on the pineal gland. The gland begins to actively produce melatonin. As melatonin levels rise in your bloodstream, drowsiness and reduced performance set in, signaling the onset of the approaching sleep cycle. This is why melatonin is called the Dracula hormone. It only comes out when it's dark. Now, as we've seen, fatigue is a fairly fine balancing act. And a lot needs to go into motion, be in place, and work the right way for sleep to engage properly. Because of that, there's lots of factors affecting sleep, and we've seen that nutrition plays a large role in getting the right amount of amino acids to promote proper sleep patterns and habits. But food and drinks, as well as other factors, can be greatly detrimental to our sleep as well. Food and saturated and trans fats, for example, such as French fries, potato chips, or other high-fat snack foods, will bring your serotonin levels down. And we've seen this is pretty crucial to your sleep. Alcohol is another big one. A lot of people use alcohol mistakenly as a common sleep aid. It promotes the production of adenosine receptors, if you remember what those receptors do when we talked about caffeine. So it promotes the production of those receptors, helping you fall asleep faster, but that's where the benefits end. As night progresses, alcohol will start to wreak havoc on your sleep and rest, and because it is a relaxant, it also suppresses your natural breathing, leading to sleep apnea. Alcohol will also block REM cycles, which is the most important and restorative part of your sleep. During the REM sleep, some neurotransmitters, such as serotonin, are switched off, helping your brain replenish those vital chemicals. While low or moderate alcohol doses have little effect on REM sleep, high amounts can impact the duration and amount of REM. This means that instead of the deep, blissful sleep that you're expecting, you often find yourself awake in the middle of the night and waking up groggy and unfocused in the morning. Now, caffeine, on the other hand, blocks your adenosine receptors, forcing your brain to think that it's not sleepy, preventing your natural circadian rhythm from doing its work. Artificial light, as we said, especially blue light emitted by electronic devices, computer, TV screens, phones, is highly disruptive to healthy sleep patterns. Light exposure tells your pineal gland that it's daytime, preventing it from kicking in the melatonin production. And now again on the bad mood, but emotions and moods can also affect serotonin levels, and this is why stress or anxiety, for example, can make it harder to fall asleep. And finally, as part of the circadian rhythm, the body's temperature is lowered for sleep. So a hot environment will make it harder to cool down and promote sleep. So exercising too close to bedtime, for example, can be detrimental as it might take up to 3 hours for the internal temperature to reach required levels. So what are some of the healthy sleep habits that we can use in order to improve our sleep with positive lifestyle changes and consistent habits? So there are some very basic yet very important strategies that we can use. Trying to do each of these as part of our normal routine will have a big impact on our sleep quality. One, regular sleep schedule, maintaining a consistent sleep pattern 7 days a week. That means those late nights, Fridays or Saturdays. Try to sort of reduce the discrepancy between the days so that throughout the week you can have a good baseline average. Aim to get up the same time every day. So if you had to choose between when do I go to bed or when do I get up, when you get up is a lot more important than when you go to bed. Relaxing bedtime routine. Again, spend time relaxing, avoid stress or high intensity work that will put a lot of pressure on your mental or body capacities. Keep the same routine again at home and on the road. That means if you don't watch TV much at home before you go to bed, when you get to that hotel room, don't turn on the TV just because it's there. Keep the same routine and it'll help you be a lot more consistent in the quality of the sleep that you get. Avoid stimulants. We talked about that cup of coffee at 3, 4 p.m. in the afternoon. Know your limits and don't drink caffeine or sugary drinks in the evening. Avoid nicotine before bed and really only drink alcohol in moderation, if at all. Work on the environment. As we said, temperature is a crucial thing. If it's too hot, your body won't be able to cool down enough to shut down for the sleep. So keep the bedroom temperature between 60 to 70 degrees Fahrenheit, which is the equivalent of 17 to 21 degrees Celsius. I'm like a polar bear when I go to sleep. Typically, I like it really cold. Helps me fall asleep fast, and it makes a huge difference if the room is hot. Block out the noise and the light. So often I'll use either a sleep mask or a noise, like a white noise app on my phone. But blocking out, turning off all sources of light and external noise will help a lot. Adding that little white noise or that fan or earplugs will help also drown out the ambient noise that you might hear around you, whether it's traffic or other things. Cut out blue light, as we've talked. Stop using electronics about an hour before bedtime. That means as much as you can, stop the TV, the phone, the iPad, everything like that. Blue light prevents melatonin production, so help yourself there. Exercising, we've talked about not exercising too late during the day because you won't be able to cool down fast enough, but regular exercise reduces cortisol levels, which cortisol promotes alertness. Cortisol also induces a lot of stress. So, judicious use of workout time during the day can help shift the circadian rhythm also. A much needed tool when facing jet lag, for example. So when I'm on the road, I like to keep a very strict routine and I'll work out in the morning, and that kind of helps my body wake up, but also tell it like, hey, this is the time of the day now that you're used to working out at home. So this is what time of the day it is today. Eating well, as we've seen, is crucial. Yeah, eating balanced and healthy. Avoiding heavy, fatty, fried, or spicy food late in the evening will help a lot too. And finally, bananas, yogurts, or healthy cereal are good bedtime snacks because of their contents in calcium, tryptophan, and carbohydrates. Now, daylight, the big one. Use daylight to regulate your biological clock in different time zones. If you're traveling, this is your best tool. But bright light with a natural blue spectrum component has the most powerful influence on the circadian rhythm. Bright light exposure in the early morning will shift the cycle forward. That's called phase advance, which is the best for eastward travel. So if you're going from North America to Europe, this is what you're going to want to do. Get up early in the morning and get some sunlight. Bright light exposure in the late afternoon, however, prolongs the circadian rhythm cycle. That's called phase delay, and it's a helpful tool when traveling west. So you want to stay up later because you're going from Europe to North America, and you want to shift that circadian rhythm that way. Stay up in the afternoon, go outside, get some sunlight at that point as late as you can in the day to help that shift around. All right, there's a couple more tools that we can use in order to help us pursue good sleep habits and track them as well. One of these is a smartwatch and apps. Most smartwatches now come with a heart rate monitor. You'll notice big differences in heart rate between well-rested or tired states. I know for myself that when I'm tired is when my heart rate will be consistently higher than normal. When I'm pumping about at 55 beats per minute, at a tired state, I'll be up in the high 70s, low 80s if I'm not well rested at all. So my heart rate is a big indication for me as to how good of a night's sleep I got, how well I'm managing my sleep on the road or at home. Late night alcohol will also have also have visible effects on your resting heart rate the next day, as it affects your sleep quality. Same thing. Some smartwatches also monitor your sleep if you wear them through the night, and they'll record them via your phone apps. So that's also another tool that you can use. Um, Now, in the future, I mean, as of now, I know a few air carriers that are thinking about options to use smartwatches, for example, coupled with company applications to track your crew rest, for example. The ability to monitor and control rest and fitness for duty might become more common practice as it evolves into core safety focus in the future. So, what I'd like to hear now down in the comments below and or in discussion if we ever have a chance to do so is what are your thoughts on improving and tracking proper rest habits? As always, feel free to look at the review questions below. I'll leave them in the video description. And if you have any questions, comments, leave them there and I'll be happy to answer them. I'll see you on the next chapter of the Pilot Factor.